My deep appreciation of theater history was instilled in me by Tom Empey, a college mentor to me and hundreds, if not thousands of others. While teaching Greek theater terms, he would grab the fabric of his slacks and say,
"You see these pants? Euripides, Eumenides,"
making light of content that could be considered rather dry and stuffy while still maintaining respect for the art, which is what I want to do with this podcast. For each episode, I invite a guest from the many paths my theater career has taken me down. I give my guests no idea what we'll be talking about, but they know we're going to find an outrageous story about theater history and perhaps get a better understanding about why we're still doing it after all these years. So, welcome to Euripides Eumenides, and I am your host, Aaron Odom.
Apocalypse, I said, why you want to show up now? Just when the heart of my life was getting good. I'll give you one more chance. Walk on out of the door, yeah. Get your ass to getting where the getting is good.
Good morrow, Eumenidites, or goodeen, whatever the case may be for you. This is Aaron Odom from Trident Theater bringing you another episode of Euripides Eumenides, a theater history podcast. Another episode, how about the final episode of Season 2? 15 episodes seems to be kind of a good little chunk for me to do and then get some steam back for more. Because if you're a new listener to this show, or you're a longtime fan and just never do this, I do everything. I research, I write, I record, I edit, I distribute, I publish, I do everything. And I do love it. I love doing this. I really can't imagine not doing it. But putting this podcast into a seasonal format, well, it'll definitely help me avoid some burnout, and it will allow me to recharge and bring you some more content for further seasons. Plus, this being not only the last episode of the season, but also the last episode of 2025, I find myself like a front porch weatherman looking at the horizon, trying to figure out what's coming, prognosticating on what the winds might bring forth. And right now, the winds are suggesting a transitional period for me. That's what it feels like. And Trident Theater. Truth be told, there seems to be opportunity ripe to check some more items off my theatrical bucket list while planning on how to make this podcast grow. And speaking of growing the show, I have to thank all of you listeners for sticking around and all of you new listeners who have found us. If you're enjoying it, please share the show with others so we can make this Eumenidite Legion grow more and more. Now, this being the last episode of the season, I really wanted to go out with a great big feeling, as most theater artists want their audiences to go home with. I went from sweeping stories of theater movements to attempts at national theater identity to several other incredibly huge topics. But it was on my way driving to the Wyoming High School State Thespian Festival this year that I was listening to podcasts, and the subject of this episode came up. No one was around to confirm, but I guarantee a literal actual light bulb popped up over my head. Now, as for the guest of this episode, I have high school theater instructor Zach Schneider returning again. Zach has been on this show several times, and he and I have worked together in a number of capacities over the years. But speaking of the Wyoming High School State Thespian Festival, Zach has been in the upper echelons of running that tournament for the last several years, and it's primarily due to leadership like his and the legacy that he built that make that tournament an absolutely valuable experience for all involved. I get into it a little bit at the beginning of the episode, but Zach should feel quite proud of what he's been able to accomplish with the help of many other like-minded theater artists. But I've always just enjoyed Zach's perspective on this program, both sage and with a wry sense of humor that always makes for great podcasting. So, without further ado, here is the last episode, number 15 of Season 2, Punch and Judy. Zach, I gotta say, you're looking well.
Thank
2
you.
weeks ago, you were looking fine as well, but quite harried, if I might say.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Right in the middle of ThesFest, trying to solve all kinds of problems, and you only have so many fingers you can put in the dam.
Yeah. Luckily, we have a lot of people on our board and lots of fingers. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I mean, I've been attending that for years. I've been adjudicating for it. You and I have worked together on it for many, many years. And I gotta say, like, the 15 1X that I adjudicated this year were extraordinary. They
Awesome.
were amazing. And I talked about it on the last episode a little bit because my last episode I recorded live at ThesFest in front of some
Hmm.
of those kids. But there were just so many amazing theater things coming out of that. And I got to hand it to you. Like, you know, you were kind of spearheading this for years. And I'm just
Hmm.
going to say, I think the quality of theater in the state has improved, especially among the high school
Oh,
kids because of that.
no.
So,
Well, thank
yeah,
you. I appreciate that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's been really exciting to watch this thing grow. It started out as a competition, first, second, third place. It was like going to a track meet. And,
right.
to me, theater isn't track,
Mm-mm.
right? I really have a hard time saying that you are the best monologuist in the state, right?
Right.
Because you're being adjudicated on one performance on one day by two people who have their biases and the things they're
Right.
bringing to it. And I was sick and tired of having kids crying on the bus home say, why am I even doing this? Right?
Yeah.
How can I have a life in theater if I'm not even able to be the best in Wyoming? um, and that broke my heart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, we don't do theater because we're the best. We do theater because we want to tell a story. We want to build community. We want to, tap into emotion. It's all of the other things, and I don't need somebody to tell me that I'm the best to do it, right?
Right. Right. And like you were saying, those adjudicators, like I saw 15 40 half hour to 45-minute one acts.
Hmm.
You've got people who are watching 200 monologues in a weekend,
Yep.
and at that time they might have just gotten a text from their ex, and the kid who walks up looks like their ex, and they're like,
Yep.
okay, you're done. you know
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
that's how it works in the real world a lot of time. I mean, tomorrow you have another audition, another interview,. This is their one shot.
Yeah, yeah, and just past the competitions, the other thing that I was not happy with is my students would compete, and then when they were done, they didn't have anything to do, right?
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
would
yeah.
sit around the college, they would hang out, and it just wasn't educational. And so, looking at the way the International Thespian Society does it, I really enjoyed the addition of workshops, right?
Hmm.
So rather than have an adjudicator sit there, watch me, and write something down, now I can be in a workshop with a theater professional who I can get to know, who I can work with, I can learn new things. If it's a college instructor, I can begin networking with them. And I'm just really happy because, for a lot of schools in Wyoming, this is the only theater they get. They
Yeah,
don't do a school
yeah,
play. They get state thespian festival. And
yeah.
so being able to make it something that is not only worthwhile that showcases them, but also educates them, it's a win-win. And I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll encapsulate it into one thing. There was one school last year that the three adjudicators and I, we at the end of it, we got into our huddle and we're kind of like, I don't know, these ones, I'm worried that they just kind of don't understand the fundamental aspects of putting on a thing. Like, there's this thing that's missing. There's this thing that's missing. And so we're like, we got to tell them something. We got to tell them something to kind of keep them going. And so one of
Hmm.
the adjudicators is really smart, and we get down and talk to him, and they go, so tell me a little bit about this group. Tell me about how it runs. And they start talking about it, and they're like, we get together a couple days a week, and we work, and we're like, okay, so I guess that kind of explains a couple things. And then we start, giving some critique, and one girl in front row starts crying. And we're like,
Hmm.
oh God, yep, we were gonna do it. We were gonna do it. And we're like, oh, sweetie, what's going on? She goes, I'm just so sad because this is the last time I'm going to perform with these people ever.
Hmm.
And it just hit me so hard. I'm like, oh my God, that's what this is to these people.
Yeah,
That's what this is. It's their community.
absolutely.
They're not doing it to be like, I really plan to get that award. It's just like, I'm gonna throw this out there and see what people think of it. And if it doesn't do anything, well, hell with it. I got something out of it.
Sure.
You know?
And I mean, that loss of community, which she's always going to have, right? I mean, I still talk with folks I did high school theater with, but I mean, she's doing it for the right reasons. That's why we do it, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Well, again, thank you again for all your effort in that. You're continuing to do it. I'd love to do it. I hope I'm asked back. I don't think I did anything terribly wrong this year.
No, you've been great. It's been nice having you. Yeah.
But anyway, that kind of gets us a little bit into what I want to talk about today. And today, actually, we're recording the final episode of season 2. So this is my Christmas gift or holiday gift to my fans out there, saying we'll be back at some point, but we're going to leave you with a high note, I think.
Well, no pressure. I hope I don't give them a lump of coal.
Or, what is it in other cultures? I don't know. A lump of camel dung? I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
Why not? So I sent you a question earlier this week to kind of mull over. And while some of our listeners might not quite understand what this is, a lot of them might. But Zach, I just got to ask you, what is your favorite stock character from theater history?
Okay, my favorite stock character. I don't know. I always like the underdog. And I also always like the kind of loudmouth. I don't know where I get that from. And so, I mean, I like the loud, boisterous trickster, right?
Yes.
I mean, it starts with the Harlequin character who, is always playing jokes on his master. But I like the servant character that is just so over the top and loud and Jack Black is the type of character I look at.
Oh my God. And we're looking at that Anaconda movie coming out here. And my younger son works at a movie theater. And so he's been going to a lot of things. He's been seeing the promotional stuff put up and he's like, I gotta see that. And I'm like, you really have to watch the first one first. You really do. And he's like, oh, I really want to. I'm like, no, I don't think you do.
Yeah.
Because it's terrible. Yeah. It's universally terrible and everybody knows it. But then you bring in Jack Black with his Jack Blackness.
Yeah.
And just the shibba-da-bow, rick-a-da-cow.
Well, and I love the idea because I don't know if you're out there and you avoid trailers because you don't like spoilers, and I know you're trying to keep yourself clean for Anaconda. What I like about it is the way the tack they're taking. They're not just remaking it; they're making a meta movie. So Jack Black and Paul Rudd are remaking in the movie Anaconda. Yeah, and so I love it. It's like Tropic Thunder meets Anaconda. Yeah. It's absolutely absurd, and it is. I mean. And you're talking about, we're talking about stock characters. I mean, you could talk about Paul Rudd as a stock character. Yeah. He's the handsome, dopey, like ne'er-do-well hero that always seems to come out on top. Yep. Right? Yeah. So I like those characters, and I think the thing that attracts me to somebody, Jack Black, if you want to go, educational, I always looked at as a Brighella, right? This is this Italian stock character. They wore masks and did improvisational comedy, and Brighella was just kind of the over the top, crass, jocular dude. Yeah, Jack Black and High Fidelity. That's my favorite. There you go. Character. Yep. I think of him as School of Rock, but that's just because I see myself in that role someday. Well, I also like because that character also gets me to another one, which is more modern, which is the wacky neighbor. Oh, yeah. Right? So, like, I mean, in High Fidelity, he's the co-worker at the work store. He's or at the record store. He's not the main character. He's the
No.
guy that like throws the quips in, and
Hmm.
is just comes out of left field. And
Yeah.
I love those characters. The janitor in Scrubs, um,
Yeah. You
who
could
is
think of
it?
a number of cheerleaders in
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
that guy from Airplane. The one who is the assistant, who's all what is
Oh,
it?
the flamboyant character. Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes, yes.
yes.
And
I always
Larry's
forget
getting
his name.
larger.
Yes, but I mean, you just throw this crazy stuff in, and it's just okay, and then you just move on. I love those things.
That's fantastic. Well, yeah, we're throwing a lot of terms around here that I think it probably would help to get us all kind of on the same page. So, if we're going to talk about stock characters, then we're going to have to take a peek at the stock characters from Commedia dell'arte, which you were hinting
Hmm.
at there
Hmm.
earlier. It's a wonderful place to establish a baseline. So, as my listeners may know, Commedia dell'arte is a form of theater that was popular in Europe beginning in the Renaissance period. Most would consider it the most significant addition to theatrical performance out of the Italian Renaissance, as most of the contributions to theater from the Italian Renaissance were technical achievements. So, yeah, they have these
Yeah.
amazing technical achievements. The acting wasn't that great, but we've got these performing troops of comedians running around.
Hmm.
To make it brief, Commedia was a satirical form of theater in which the stories were mainly outlines with well defined characters, as I'll describe in a moment, and the actors got the opportunity to mainly improvise the performance in air quotes dialogue, which was usually just kind of gibberish because they're crossing country lines and language barriers and stuff.
Hmm.
But they got to improvise this stuff just as long as they generally hit the key points of the story and got to the expected conclusion. So there's a plot setup, but the words might be different from place to place and time to time.
Hmm.
I think of them a lot like a Christopher Guest movie, like Waiting for Guffman or Best in Show, in which the
Sure.
character knows who they're going to be playing. They're given a basic idea of what parts of the plot they need to convey. They just basically get to make up the words and interactions with the other strongly defined characters.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't want to get ahead, but what I also like is you talked about their performance style being gibberish.
Mm-hmm.
What I really love is a lot of the sight gags that they would do. The
Oh my
spit take.
word.
The spit
Yes.
take comes from Commedia dell'arte, right?
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
they had like menus of types of jokes that they would do, right? And so they
Right.
would, and the great thing is the audience was in on it. They knew all those things too, and so
Mm-hmm.
when they saw them, they cheered, and it was exciting for them. I always looked at it as like a Saturday Night Live, if it had more improvisation,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And colloquialism. Like they travel to a town and they're like, I don't know why, but chickens play well here. So let's just do chicken jokes for most of the show, right?
Yeah.
Now, plus, all of these characters are generally stereotypes derived from real life character types that seem to be causing a lot of issues all over Europe, and thus probably were ripe to be ridiculed in a public format. And we know these characters today as stock characters, simply
Mhm.
defined as well constructed characters that can and are put into a variety of situations, all to humorous outcomes. Like we've said several examples, but I think probably the best example I can think of is like Looney Tunes. Okay.
Mhm.
We'll take Bugs Bunny, for example. Like in all the different situations he's put into. In one short, he's put in a rocket and sent to Mars. In another, he's put on a baseball team for some reason and now has to play
Mhm.
all the positions, right? It's stuff like
Sure.
that. But he's still generally the same wisecracking, witty rabbit with a Flatbush accent. He's still
Yep.
the same person. It's just, let's put him in this situation, see what happens. Now, so that audiences knew what characters actors were going to be in the plays, the actors in different troupes would all have the same costumes, which generally included a half mask with distinguishing characteristics.
Mhm.
It would cover the forehead and generally go down just below the cheekbones. Now, when we think of different types of stock characters today, we, like you and I were listing a bunch of them, but here's some more, like the dastardly villain who just is always like, conniving and always looking to ruin the day. You've
Hmm.
got the muscle bound hero who always means well, maybe, but maybe just doesn't have the wits to, finish the task, but he always still wins somehow, brawn over brain, I guess.
Sure.
There's the flimsy ingenue, the woman who always seems to be getting in trouble or tied to this dangerous thing or that.
Sure. Sure.
Or, like you were saying, maybe a wacky sidekick or two,
Yep. Yep.
right?
The know-it-all academic who
Yep.
doesn't know how the world works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, commedia characters were actually developed a little more strongly than that, but of course, each actor brought their own perspectives to each role. Nonetheless, there were facets of each character's personality that had to remain true for the storytelling to be complete. You couldn't necessarily have a kind villain or a morally gray hero, a
Mhm.
woman that a woman that can solve her own problems. Stuff
God
like
forbid.
that. Now, big portions of these personalities of commedia characters were derived from their place on the social ladder, kind of like you were
Mhm.
saying earlier, hinting at masters and servants. There's a lot of play between masters and servants and trying to one up each other in that way. The characters higher on the social spectrum are simply people who believe that they should have a higher status for a number of reasons. Generally, these guys get to oversee one or several servants. A few examples of these are, like you were saying, Dottore, the doctor.
Dottore.
Dottore, who usually wore the costume of a doctor in his day, black robes with white frills, sometimes a powdered wig, and he would often boast of his vast intelligence, of which he usually had very little.
Hmm.
I got to be in a commedia show several years ago, and I played, kind of a dullard. I'm a big guy, so it was pretty easy. It's like, oh, he's the big
Sure.
idiot,
Yeah.
right? So I had to be helping a dottore at some point, like a character had fainted, so we called the doctor. Doctor comes running in, and our dottore had a big syringe, like a horse syringe that had the needle taken out, that she just filled with water and would come out and shoot it all at the audience and everything, and everybody, oh boy, that's fun. And then she had a stethoscope, and the character on the floor was one of the young lovers. There's the girl,
Hmm.
and she'd like listen to the bottom of the foot, and then like listen to the heart, and then listen to her butt and go like, oh yep, there's a beat there, there's something going on. That's the dottore.
Hot jokes. I mean,
but-
they're classic.
What jokes? Yeah. Here's another one. Pantalone.
Yeah.
Pantalone is often depicted as a miserly old man or a once wealthy man, but always old and always
Yeah.
scheming to get more wealth or to keep what he already has. Pantalone's mask usually featured a long hook nose. So I don't know why. It just was like, you see that, you're like, oh,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. There, I've read that there's so, with stereotypes,
Uh-huh.
right? Stereotypes are great because it's shorthand. I don't need to give character motivation. I don't need to get into backstory. The audience just knows, right?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, when you look at more negative aspects of a character and you jump on that stereotype, I've read that Pantalone, because he's a miser and always has his hand on his change purse, that mask was made to actually look like the caricature of Jews at the time.
Oh,
So it was a
God.
way for them to laugh at Jewish bankers, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's why when I teach Commedia dell'arte, it gets a little tough because some of the jokes and some of the things that they put in there don't play as well. So
Yeah. We're gonna
sorry
get
to bring your Pantalone down.
No. You're absolutely correct. I mean, that's always the funny thing about when you read or see or perform Merchant of Venice. At the end of it, you're like, yeah, I kind of felt for Shylock in a way. Maybe he shouldn't have demanded a pound of flesh.
Yeah. It's a
10%.
10% interest.
Yeah. But at the end of it, you're kind of like, the Jewish guy kind of got screwed over, and they made a lot of points about him being Jewish. And
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moving on. Il Capitano represented a boisterous man of the military or the law. His costume was usually striped and has gold buttons on it, sometimes
Hmm.
big feathers in his hat, which all, obviously represented his military might, and almost always was adorned with lots of medals, you know.
What I loved was when you have one that has a giant phallic scabbard,
Oh yeah,
and then
yeah.
he pulls the sword out, and it's just this little tiny dirk, right? Again, dick and fart jokes.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's
Absolutely.
what comedic theater has been based on for
Oh my God.
3,000 years.
And if you can make it squeak, that's even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like you were saying, Il Capitano generally has some sort of weakness that demeans his character, such as like cowardice or some other physical infirmity,
Mhm.
like he's not strong or he has a bad leg or I don't know. But there are a myriad of characters who are simply below for one reason or another. Mainly it has to do with their social power and their possessions or wealth. If a character doesn't have much of any of that, they are destined to be subordinate. That's it.
Mhm.
You're a servant.
No, I
But
mean
that
that's what life was like then, right?
right,
I mean,
right.
if you were born into status, you had that status. If you didn't, you serve everybody else.
That's right. But that doesn't stop them from attempting to gain more status or possessions throughout the course of a Commedia story, and
Hmm.
probably throughout the life of real characters. Now, some of the more favorite servant characters are the following. You just mentioned one earlier, Arlecchino. Arlecchino is probably the most well-known servant. And here's a quote I found on Arlecchino. As soon as this character appears on stage, there is always a lot of laughter at his absurd actions and words, alternating between flashes of brilliance and plain idiocy. You can't predict which will manifest itself at any time. This is overlaid with wit and charm, as well as scheming to meet his own objectives. So he's really fun. He's the guy you want on your team in a heist.
Yeah, yeah. He's Bugs Bunny. I mean,
Yes,
you know.
absolutely. And throughout the centuries, Arlecchino developed into the character named Harlequin, who I think people would be a little bit more familiar with.
Mhm.
Now, that's probably the best baseline I can suggest for servants, right? But there are a number of other ones who vary in personalities in various shades. Like you were saying earlier, there's Brigella. Here's a
Mhm.
quote I found on Brigella. This meddlesome, greedy, and astute servant is also a ruffian, ready to
Mhm.
satisfy even the meanest desires of his master. He is usually totally unscrupulous and ready for any craft.
Yep.
Yeah, my Brigella, I think they told him to model it after a panther, and
I can
he
see
had
that.
he had this short little knife that he always was just threatening people with all the time. He'd go down in the audience and offer people a shave with his short little stubby knife and like be
Yeah.
sticking the knife like right in their face and like, yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It'll only cost you $50 for my shave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. There was Columbina, who's often portrayed as overtly flirtatious or sexual, So finally we get a woman character.
Mhm.
And is sometimes a lady of ill repute, but always seems to be able to like put her finger on the pulse of the situation.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I like about. I mean, this character in particular at this time period. It's important to remember women weren't allowed on stage
Right.
until the like mid to late 1800s.
Right.
And so Commedia dell'arte, traveling through the countryside and just performing in squares, this was probably the only way that a lot of women could portray, could get up and act in front of an audience,
Right.
right? And I
Right.
love Columbina because she's just such a strong character, right? And
Yeah.
she sees everything while everybody else is like looking down in their own thing. And I
Mhm.
love that character. I love
Yeah.
that.
She's usually able to be like, you love her. She loves you. Quit being dumbasses and actually fall in love.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. But this leads me to the character who will really start the story for today. We've gone this far.
Okay.
Pulcinella.
Pulcinella.
Pulcinella is described as thus. Pulcinella's physical appearance in the theater often resembled that of a cockerel. His mask with a beak nose is thought to have given rise to his name. Regardless, his big nose, squeaky voice, and clownish ways gave rise to him being cast as a charlatan, lazybones, tumbler, and acrobat.
Wait, what's a cockerel?
An actual rooster.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I can follow.
I think Pulcinella actually comes from, I think, the Latin word for chicken.
For chicken. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Now, as I said before, commedia was popular all over Europe throughout the Renaissance and subsequent centuries. So we're going to stick a pin in Pulcinella there for just a second. In some cases, where entire troops could not be summoned, commedia began to spread through the means of traveling puppet shows.
Mm-hmm.
Samuel Pepys, whose diaries are well known for chronicling much of British life in London during the latter half of the 17th century, first observed performance very similar to this in 1662. He saw something of a commedia show at Charing Cross, performed as a marionette show. However, in October 1662, a similar show performed by Italian puppeteer Pietro Gimondi used gloved puppets rather than marionettes, most likely due to cost.
Mm-hmm.
Gimondi, who because he came from Bologna, went by the stage name Signor Bologna, translated into popular British vernacular as Mr. Bologna.
Awesome. I love that name.
You gotta know. It's not just, I come from Bologna. Nope.
You are baloney.
You are baloney. Signor Bologna's show became so popular as a street act in the early days of the British Restoration that he was actually asked to perform for one of my favorite recurring figures in this podcast, King Charles II. Boom.
There you are.
It would seem that this performance delighted Charles so much that Signor Bologna was awarded a gold chain and medal that at the time was valued at 25 British pounds. This would be approximately 3,993 British pounds today, equaling about 5,309 US dollars.
Nice.
Nice puppet show.
Good
Here's
job.
$5,000.
Yeah, but could you imagine? I mean, I don't know. If I was a Muppet puppeteer right now and you were only paying me $5,000, we'd have a discussion. But still, I guess, not bad for sock puppets that you made in your kitchen and put on a show.
Yeah, you want Rolf, you got 5 minutes.
Yep.
Now, whether or not it was due to this well-awarded performance, this type of puppet show began popping up all over London, the protagonist of which was almost always the derivative of the commedia character Pulcinella. However, his name was shortened for a British audience simply down to what? What is it, Zach? Punch! Yes! And yeah, that's what we're talking about today.
And are you going to introduce her? Or okay,
I'm getting there.
Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, as I want to do on this show, I'm going to skip over a lot of history, just give the highlights because I want to get more into what these shows entail and how they're seen today. But that being said, punch shows started to spread all over London throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. In 1710, a man named Martin Powell struck while the iron was hot and went full in on the demand for puppet theaters at the beginning of the 18th century. He developed a series of marionette shows which almost always featured the character Punch, but never as the main character. At this point, Punch is kind of the Fonzie.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's
everybody's going to see him, right? Mm-hmm. But he's just adding color. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But it's due to the popularity of Powell's shows that we get the other half of what was something of has become something of a subgenre in the medium of theater. Punch and Judy shows.
Oh, see, I thought they always came up at the same time. I never, but of course.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the first time you see it is 1662, and here we are in 1710. So it's not, I mean, speaking in history, that's not that long back then.
Yeah.
Powell featured Punch as a character in something of a series of subplots or side stories to his main puppet shows. And they featured Punch at home, usually as something of a henpecked husband to his wife, Joan, who was never satisfied with anything Punch did. But one famous characteristic of playing Punch was that he was noted to have a high, squeaky voice, often produced by a small device known as a swazzle.
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 Hmm.
The swazzle is usually made out of wood and is fashioned into something of like a hollow, flattened oval with like pointed ends that can be concealed in the puppeteer's mouth, and it's held between the tongue and the roof of the mouth so that when air is blown through it, there's actually a reed in the middle that will vibrate and make that high-pitched sound. It kind of sounds a lot like Donald Duck on a little bit of helium.
Or when you take a straw and you cut the ends off of it and then blow on it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And his signature phrase is, "That's the way to do it," but in that swazzle talk.
Sure.
Which Punch triumphantly says when he overcomes an obstacle, whether he did it the right way or not.
Yep.
Well, the name of his wife, Joan, became very difficult to say with a swazzle.
Yeah, I can imagine. The j.
Yeah, and the it just comes out as O.
Yep.
So as best that could be surmised, by 1825, Joan became Judy, so it could be said better and understood, and thus the name of the type of show we're talking about today, Punch and Judy shows.
And just the phrasing of it fits better, right? I mean, two one-syllable names, Punch, Joan, doesn't work, right? But when you've got two syllables, then
right,
Punch, Judy. That's the imbalance you need in a comic act.
And you're kind of hinting, even though you're doing it in a very clinical fashion of just talking about the terms. But Punch Judy is something we're going to be talking about here in a little bit.
Yeah, I figured we would.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the history highlights reel so we can kind of get to how Punch and Judy shows are played today.
All right.
So I left off at the beginning of the 18th century. People are starting Punch and Judy shows everywhere, and they're being seen in all kinds of venues. Sometimes they're multi-use spaces that have been converted into puppet theaters, and sometimes they're just playing in the back rooms of pubs. Punch and Judy shows have become so prolific that eventually a theater artist named Charlotte Charke, Charke, it could be Shark, I don't know, but Charlotte Charke associated with Punch and Judy shows is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So anyway, Charlotte opens a space known as Punch's Theater just off of Haymarket in the West End. Punch and Judy shows were the primary attraction here. That's how big they got in less than 100 years.
That's awesome. Just a theater dedicated to a puppet show.
I know. I think that's amazing. I mean, I think there were puppet theaters, but just specifically to Punch and Judy shows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like I was saying, like if you're going to a movie theater and all they're running are Looney Tunes shorts.
Well, it's very similar to Charlie Chaplin, right? So Charlie Chaplin comes out and is huge, this huge star with the Tramp. And so all of the other studios started making Charlie Chaplin knockoffs.
Right.
Right. And with the hat and the mustache and the cane and
yeah.
That's what that reminds me of is, one guy struck and got Punch and now everybody just has their own spin.
Right. This is our Punch. Yeah. I got into a little debate with somebody who says, well, I did the research the other day and, like, that the Northman was the original Hamlet. I'm like, no, it wasn't.
Uh-huh.
No, I know you think you did the research. That's cute, but okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody was doing a Hamlet. Okay, let me just help you with that.
That probably my least favorite 4 words. I did my research. Right. I looked up some YouTube videos, saw a Wikipedia article, and read it on Facebook.
They had a source cited at the end. 1. Yeah. So anyway, this theater opens in 1738. And here, Charlotte would have Punch and Joan, as she was still known, act out famous characters or scenes from theater history in addition to like a traditional Punch and Judy show. Mm-hmm. For example, Punch might play Falstaff and get into some of his misadventures.
Huh. Okay.
I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
But eventually, the overhead of putting on a marionette show here was too costly, and eventually the puppets had to be sold, as did the space. So it lived briefly, but...
That's how you do it.
Yeah. Now, eventually, by the end of the 18th century, puppeteers had realized that wooden puppets were quite costly in general. So like marionette puppets, they took a long time to build and construct and everything. And, it was an artisan thing. So
Sure.
it's not like there's a manufacturer who's putting them out at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So glove puppets were adopted as the primary medium from doing shows from then on. Performers had also realized that the type of show they were doing wasn't entirely sustainable for a permanent space, so many of them began carting around small booths that they could set up easily in the street or just about anywhere to perform these shows. And the booths can range in size today, but often they're somewhere between the size of like a broom closet in an average house or a fitting room in a department store.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it just kind of depends on how prolific, I think, or, how well known the artist is today.
Sure.
But yeah, usually they're pretty tiny, maybe a foot or two by about 6 feet tall. And they're surrounded by colorful curtains on all sides with a stage cut out on one side about 4 or 5 feet up so that the puppeteer is generally out of view of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, throughout the 19th century, this is primarily where Punch and Judy shows played, on the street or in small venues where puppeteers could get work, fairs or markets or whatever. It's through the 19th century as well that most punchmen, I love that term, that most punchmen abandoned the white and black costume associated with Pulcinella and gave Punch a red and yellow jester's costume with the hat and the bells.
Yeah.
His head, as well as Judy's, usually featured flushed cheeks, wild and wide open eyes, and a large hooked nose that pointed downward, almost touching the jutting chin, which pointed upward. I mean, in a weird way, he kind of looks like that short-lived McDonald's Man in the Moon character.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, Victorian England was all about developing its seaside towns, and with the invention and proliferation of railway systems that could take lots of people to coastlines, punchmen found their ways to the beaches, where many theater troupes didn't bother going because of, cost and attendance. Like, it's a building community. How are we supposed to establish something here, right?
Sure.
To this day, Punch and Judy shows are highly associated with seaside getaways. And basically, you can throw a rock in the air and hit at a beach and hit a punch man if, that's kind of my understanding. Although from time to time, there have been attempts to make a more substantial Punch and Judy show rather than, just doing the material that's presented in front of you. In 1773, theater artist Samuel Foote attempted a staging of a Punch and Judy show using live actors rather than puppets, but still in kind of their weird, garish costumes and everything. But he made sure that the actors had strings attached to their joints and led above into, the space above the stage.
Goodness.
So that the actors looked like marionettes.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. I mean, because you have to have somebody above there that, I raise my arm, you're going to pull that string, right?
Yep. So there's no slack crazy. And everything. Yep.
And you had to have you probably had to have 4 people on an actor.
Probably. Yep.
Nuts.
That is insane when you think about the logistics of it. Obviously, it didn't really take off.
Of course not. It would be like a live action Muppet movie, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this. I did go see King Kong the musical on Broadway.
Yeah, I wish I would have.
The musical was garbage. It was really awful. But, I mean, the few moments in that show where you got to see King Kong doing his thing and watching guys in, like, black hoodies and black jeans jump off of King Kong, pulling on a rope just so on the other end of the rope his arm could raise up. It was so amazing. It was such a beautiful ballet. It was man.
I love that taking that chance too, right? I mean, the musical wasn't worth it, but hey, you got a gigantic cool puppet out of it.
Yeah, we got to run it on Broadway for about 7 months.
Yeah. Which, is unfortunate because where most Broadway flops make their money back.
Mm-hmm.
High schools. Right? So you're going to make King Kong and you're going to make the central piece of it, this gigantic puppet that no high school could ever do.
Nobody could ever make that. No.
Yeah.
No. By the way, you should go back and listen to my Raggedy Ann episodes. I think there's really something there. We could revive this thing. Anyway.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I do want to point out in this Samuel Foote thing that there's one important aspect that that kind of stuck through for a lot of Punch and Judy shows through the 17th and 18th century. Punch's primary antagonist, besides his wife, was the devil.
Sure.
Who's working hard to capture Punch's soul at any opportunity. And most times he wouldn't win, but sometimes the devil won out. And the devil was highly featured in Samuel Foote's show. So I just wanted to point that out. Like, it's not, a tax collector or, a judge or something like that. It's Satan.
It's Satan. Yeah.
It's legitimate Satan. Here's another attempt at making a Punch make it in legitimate theater, even though it is legitimate theater. That's a terrible thing to say.
Yeah.
A traveling French dancer and acrobat, Charles Francois Mazurier, I have terrible French, had an act in which he dressed like the jester-like costume of Punch in the early 19th century. In 1825, he was even commissioned to perform this dance at Covent Garden during the run of a play known as The Shipwreck of Pulcinello. And some drawings show the dancer doing some of the act on stilts.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like a Victorian dance ballet from, like Oklahoma. We're going to have an interlude and this guy's going to dance on stilts.
I think it was more akin to like in the middle of this play, we're going to have a Cirque du Soleil act, and it's going to be Kermit the Frog jumping through hoops.
A guy in a Kermit the Frog costume jumping through hoops. Yeah.
On stilts.
On stilts.
And landing in big pools of water. The more I talk to people about Punch and Judy shows, the more people I know that have seen them, even more so remember them fondly as something as a foundational part of their lives. It's always surprising to me to find out just when and how theater makes an impact on a life, even if it's a silly puppet show. Now, while we're stopped, I hope you're following the show on Instagram, and if you'd like to send me a message in this seasonal break, feel free to use a contact us form at tridenttheater.com. I've heard from a lot of you before that way, and that's probably the best way to do it. Please do that. Love to hear from you. But let's get back to Zach Schneider and wrap up the rest of this episode, Punch and Judy. But, of course, mainly Punch and Judy shows remain puppet shows. And whereas today they're generally known to be entertainment for all, particularly kids, when they became more widespread in the 19th century, they seemed to take on one of the characteristics of commedia dell'arte. They were topical. And they still remain to this day. Like sometimes there are characters that they'll dress like, politicians or something like that. And Punch will, take the piss out of them and stuff. But most of the laughs were generated from the fact that the scenes on stage were inspired by current events, generally domestic woes.
Take my wife, please.
Oh, yeah. That was something Tom always told us is like wedding jokes always sell. Marriage jokes always sell. I mean, you wouldn't have a show like Married with Children run for so long and be so popular in this country if people weren't like, I get that. Or
sure. I mean, the Honeymooners. They were a live action Punch and Judy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
They were. Absolutely. To the moon, Alice. Our first real Punch and Judy script somewhat officially has a pin on the timeline in 1827, but that was by a puppeteer in his 80s who's traveling around still doing puppet shows in 1827 in his 80s.
God. Yeah, I mean, well, I imagine this dude was doing glove puppet because could you imagine with arthritic hands trying to manipulate those strings?
Yeah, his booth was probably 3 feet tall, so he could just sit in his wheelchair. And anyway, this guy had studied under another puppeteer during the end of the 1700s, so we don't know exactly how old this Punch and Judy script, air quotes script, has been around.
Mhm.
In any case, we get something of a standard setup for a Punch and Judy show from then on. The show usually begins as Punch is going about his life, trying to become somewhat comfortable in his surroundings, until he is interrupted by his annoying wife, Judy. She usually has some task that she's putting in his charge while she's going to go away for a little while. You know, whether she's going shopping or whether she's going to go out with the girls or whatever. Punch, you have to stay home and take care of this.
Mhm.
Most often, she's putting Punch in charge of watching over their baby, which he proves again and again that he is perfectly incapable of doing.
Yeah. Yep. And here you have the foundation for every family sitcom ever.
Yep, absolutely. And once he, air quotes, solves the problem of the baby, and we'll get to that in just a moment, he can set out for his real adventure for the story. Now, the story can unfold in a lot of different ways. It just kind of depends on the way that the puppeteer is managing the show that day, but usually the story unfolds using many of the standard puppets that might be expected at a Punch and Judy show. And I'll get into those in just a minute. Punch will get into different interactions with one or several of these characters who will all try to prevent Punch from achieving his end goal. Regardless of whether or not Punch actually achieves his goal, it doesn't really matter. As long as there's good slapstick, farcical, good times, and people are entertained, it's considered good fun. We had a great time. That's fine.
Sure.
I don't care if he actually gets what he wants.
No, we watched him get beat up. That's enough.
Yeah. And I'll come back to the slapstick later too. Now, here are the characters that can most often be seen. This is not just limited to these, but these are usually the ones we see. So I already mentioned Punch and Judy and their baby. As I mentioned before, even though he's not as prolific as he used to be, the devil, who's always working to steal Punch's soul or just get him into more and more trouble. It's like, I stole this from this thing. You don't know that I stole that. Here, you hold it while I go somewhere, and now people are looking for you, right?
Yep.
The crocodile, which, as you can see, as a glove puppet, is just like a big mouth with lots of teeth. That's pretty much what the crocodile is. Anyway, for the most part, the crocodile seems to have replaced the devil as Punch's primary foil outside of his wife. He's always hungry. He's always trying to get Punch. He's always trying to get what Punch is after, all that stuff. The hangman, who, for various and sundry reasons, is coming to collect on Punch's neck.
For the kids.
And there are a lot of times when, to absolute audience delight, Punch fools the hangman into slipping the noose around his own neck and hanging himself while Punch gets away.
Yeah. Things we can't get away with today.
Let's see. There's a courtier who basically can represent any upper class citizen worthy of being made fun of. A clown, because why not?
Kids love clowns.
And they're always
Right?
funny and never anything else.
Never scary.
Yeah. Hey, have you seen Welcome to Derry yet?
No. I don't like horror movies all that much.
Oh, I'm a big fan, but not of that one necessarily.
Yeah.
I can't get that Andrew to watch it. She's terrified of clowns. Anyway, let's see who else we got here. A beetle, and not the bug, but like the lawman position. Who over the last several decades has been more replaced simply by just like a cop.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's a puppet of a chain of sausage links. As Punch is usually dispatched by Judy to make sure they have enough to eat in the house. So the sausage links often seem to be sentient and understanding that they are an object to be desired. And so they're often trying to avoid being acquired by Punch.
Yeah. It's the way, like Looney Tunes slipping in jokes for adults.
Right.
I'm sure the desired sausage was not just something to eat.
Yeah, like he would hold up a bag that's just a big hole, and he's like, "Sausage, get in the hole." And the sausage is like shaking its head and going, "No, I don't want to." And then, of course, is the typical man, "Let's get the sausage in the hole."
Yep, that's what she said.
I don't understand. Many more puppets were used as needed, such as Chinese jugglers tossing plates through the air, or I think they'd have dancers. Sometimes there are some that have just been more or less retired, even though they show up every now and then. I'll tell you about that in just a second. Now, I think it's worth mentioning again that while today Punch and Judy shows are generally meant to be entertainment for all, primarily children, as we've kind of pointed out, Zach, they didn't always start out that way.
No.
Over the years, many critics have brought up the idea of Punch not necessarily being made of the most noble qualities.
No. No.
They're like, kids are watching this stuff? My God. You know, you and I grew up in the 90s. I still am kind of flabbergasted by maybe the few reported events of fires being started because kids watched Beavis and Butthead.
Mm-hmm.
And the 99% of us that watched that show and didn't start fires is not what was talked about.
Oh, no. Well, of course not. Of course not. I mean, anytime you want to blame a society's ill, you're not going to point out the 99% that are just fine. Right? It's that one kid. It's those video games.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's that music. Oh, it's those books. Right?
Yep. Oh, here, I'll just go ahead and get political. I may or may not cut this out of the show, but here we are both in Wyoming. I've got kids who are in high school. One of them is a high school athlete, and he weighed in on this whole thing about trans kids in sports. And he's like, do you know how many students that actually affects in this state that took up so much significant time in legislative sessions and in public forums and everything? You pointed it out there.
Yep. It's one
student.
Yep.
One student.
But you know, as a result, what's opened up is how many biologically born females are being harassed about their gender, right?
Yeah.
So it just boggles my mind how they say, oh, this is great for women's rights. And it's like, no, you've now made every woman under scrutiny to prove somehow that they are a woman.
Yep. Absolutely.
If they're good at sports, if they're good, somebody's going to say, oh, no, that must be a man. And they're going to challenge it. And
Yep. Oh, and let's just completely ignore the rest of the state where we are like, hey, all of our minerals are going away, and we you know, our primary source of income is going away. We don't have enough to diversify the economy. But by God, we made it safe for no, we didn't. Okay. All right. Okay. Anyway, going back to Punch and not being of the noblest of stuff, I'm going to start with the handling of the baby. Now, Punch would very often not do the right thing to soothe the baby as might be needed. More often than not, he would do something completely unexpected and inappropriate, which is entertaining to watch, but when you really break it down, you're like, I don't feel like I should be laughing at this. You know, to stop the baby from crying, he would do things like sitting on it to stifle the baby's cries, as we do. You know, both you and I are parents. I can't even tell you how many times that worked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You could toss a baby into a trunk and lock it.
Yeah, you can do that. You could.
You can even punt the baby off stage.
You just get rid of it altogether.
Just done. And then he'd utter his catchphrase, "That's the way to do it."
That's the way to do it.
And then go set off on his own adventure. Baby, gone. We're done. Thank God. Wipe my hands of it. We're out. Next, I'll bring up the treatment of his wife, Judy. A prop that Punch is almost never without is his stick, which is actually a proper slapstick. Okay, so a slapstick, when it's, oh my God, you have one.
I have a slapstick.
And
my wife got this for me for Christmas like 2 years ago.
And it's just two pieces of wood with
wood with a hinge.
With a springed hinge, and it makes a loud snap when you actually make it. Oh my God. Yep. So that's what Punch would carry around. And he'd smack things with it if he needed to get them out of his way. Oftentimes, that was Judy.
Yeah. It's a different time.
Different time. Yeah, I mean, never mind the fact that Judy has the unfortunate position of being the stereotypical, annoying, nagging housewife that never seems to be satisfied with her husband or anything that he does. But that, when you really break it down, the baby's taken care of, the house is in order, she's solved all these problems around the bumbling idiot that is her husband.
Yeah.
It's actually, it's legitimate. Yeah. But she's got that unfortunate position of like, ugh, she's such a pain in my butt. Anyway, Punch would often have to resort to smacking his wife with a stick just to get away with her, sometimes several times. Well, I guess sometimes people consider that a little deplorable.
Yeah. I mean, at least in the honeymooners, Cramden just threatened to the moon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he never did it, but still.
And Alice always had some smart comeback and a way to, fix it, right?
Deflate it, yeah.
Yeah. I saw a clip the other day of the woman who played Edith in All in the Family.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was on the Dick Cavett show, and she was just using her natural voice because on the show she has like this very amplified
kind of up there voice, Archie.
Yeah, exactly. And with everything that's gone on with Rob Reiner recently, it's getting a lot of attention. And she's like, and they're like, "Can you say this line that Edith would usually say, but in your own voice?" And she's like, "No." Because I kind of want people to understand that there is a split between the personality of the actor and this character that I play that everybody sees me as.
Sure.
But I'm actually this person, and I have legitimacy, and I am real, and there are things that go on. I'm just playing a part to a point.
Yep. And I'm not your dancing monkey. Right?
To Edith. Oh my God.
Ugh.
Yeah. Now, I will say that even sometimes Judy actually was able to get the stick away from Punch, and that's how he set off on his adventure, because she'd smack him out the door with it or something. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let that one pass.
Sure. Turnabout's fair play.
Right. But I mean, unfortunately, there's still the implication that it's the woman in the story that's a negative influence on the life of the hero simply by virtue of her existence.
Gosh, the woman that takes care of everything, and
while I'm gone getting drunk or wasting all our money, I know that my baby is safe and that there's going to be food when I get home. Hey, Charles Dickens was a huge fan of Punch and Judy shows, and had this to say about their content, particularly in relation to the marital woes observed. Quote, "In my opinion, the street punch is one of those extravagant reliefs from the realities of life in which would lose its hold upon the people if it were made moral and instructive. I regard it as quite harmless in its influence and as an outrageous joke which no one in existence would think of regarding as an incentive to any kind of action or as a model for any kind of conduct." End quote.
Yeah. Sure.
That's why it was funny, because it was unrelatable.
Yeah, nobody would ever beat their wives. Never abuse their children.
That's why it's funny.
Charles. I generally like the guy, but I can't get behind that one.
I mean, that's one of those, you got to separate the art from the artist. And like, okay, Oliver was great, but geez, just don't say what you think.
But at the same time, I also, I believe me, I am not validating, domestic abuse, but that argument of video games make kids violent never flies with me, right?
No.
And so, I would much rather he argue art is a reflection on society. It is not the instigator, right?
Right.
So,
yeah. And I guess in his defense, I could say that if you're watching something like that, nobody carries a stick as tall as themselves and beats their wives with it, I would hope. And maybe that's what he's saying. It's like the over-the-topness is so over the top that, but still, it's a problematic quote.
Yeah.
Now, While a lot of the domestic violence has either been watered down or eliminated in a lot of Punch and Judy shows today, some purists and traditionalists still demand its place in performance.
Make Punch and Judy great again. All these woke puppet shows.
Well, I mentioned it, I think a few shows back. Mark Maron got into it this summer when, he's getting rid of his podcast, and you've got all of these right-leaning comedians who are like, oh, you can't say anything anymore. It's like, no, that's not you can say whatever you want. There are just some things that you say that have consequences.
Yep.
Okay. And if you're not willing to deal with the consequences, then maybe you shouldn't say the thing. That's it. Okay. So anyway, as I mentioned before, some characters have more or less been eliminated from the repertoire to make the show a little less scurrilous and a little more generally available to all audience members.
Yeah.
For example, another character from Commedia made his place in Punch and Judy shows in the 17th and 18th centuries. Scaramouche, the clown character who would seduce Punch into more of the seedier side of life.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's not his willingness to be able to do it. It's let's just get rid of the naughty character. That's
yeah.
It's not him.
I when I teach Commedia, I use The Office.
Oh,
right?
yeah. That's
and
perfect.
Todd Packer is the Scaramouche, right? Just the awful person. When we first showed The Office to my kids, we always skipped the Todd Packer episodes because he was just so awful, right? Yeah. And so that's essentially what they did. They skipped Todd Packer out of Punch and Judy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, like I was saying, though, Punch still didn't seem to have a problem getting himself into trouble, regardless of whether or not Scaramouche was in there.
No. There
was another somewhat retired puppet of his mistress, Pretty Polly.
Okay.
And this was often the goal, that he'd be leaving the house to get away from Judy to go achieve. The mistress, the pretty one, the cute girl. Oh, yeah.
Tell me. So I guess my question is, who gets it in the end? Right? I mean, so, here we've got this guy who beats his wife, throws his baby out the window, and then goes and sees his side piece. Tell me he gets his comeuppance.
In a lot of those, that was the end goal. Hey, you got rid of the annoyances in life. You win. I think somewhere along the line, somebody went, yeah, we don't do that anymore. And if you do, it's not the greatest look. Let's maybe tone that back. Do we need the Pretty Polly character anymore? No, we can probably do. Hey, we still got the sausage. Let's roll with that. Sausage and a crocodile. You're all good. But nonetheless, Punch and Judy shows today are more widely known for their ability to be consumed by all, especially children. And here's the thing. We've been talking about all of these problematic elements that aren't entirely there anymore. Some of them do them, but most of them, they're like, this has got to be something that everybody can get into. We can all watch Shrek. There are adult jokes for the kids. There are kids jokes for the kids. There are kids jokes for the adults. It's all fun. It's all fun. And I watched a video on the history of these types of shows, and I saw one that was performed at the time it was filmed, which is, sometime within the last 15, 20 years. Zach, the delight on the children's faces of just seeing somebody get into a situation where you're like, ooh, how are they going to get out of this? And whether they do or not, they get out of the situation, maybe not to the best of their advantage, but it's fun to watch them go through it. Yeah. That's comedy. Yeah. That's comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Just that. Anyway. But as
and
you might have
one thing I love about British theatrical performance, the punching, the puppets, but also the pantomime.
Yeah.
Right? That idea of we're just coming together, and that improvisational, just fun for fun's sake,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Is there
love those
something
traditions.
behind me? Yes.
Yes, I
Where?
wish we had more of those, right?
Yeah.
They'd just be so much fun.
Yeah. But as you might have surmised by now, since these shows generally rely on the puppeteer going out on his own to perform his wares for income, the puppeteer usually would rely on donations from the audience. I mean, it's past the hat around time.
Yep.
So, I mean, it is basically busking in a very specific format. You don't have a guitar. You don't have a Home Depot bucket that you turn upside down and drum. This is your thing. Now, in order to help out with that, a punch man or a professor, as they also have come to be known, the puppeteers of professors.
Okay.
They'll usually employ a person known as a bottler, whose sole responsibility is to basically be the hype man. They get the crowd together, they get them excited for the show, they tell some jokes to get them excited about clapping and cheering, and more specifically, to get them to give money or other prizes to the whole affair. And sometimes the bottler will interact with the puppets on the stage. And they're also kind of like an accomplished musician, so they can sing or play a guitar or some other instrument. And they can entertain the audience while the puppeteer is taking a break or setting up for the next part of the act.
Sure. Warm-up act.
Yeah, absolutely. It's your opener. And I mean, that's more or less how Punch and Judy shows are seen today. They're traveling acts with just a few people who are involved with it. They put up and they're like, hey, we're doing a show now, and people will gather around, and that's just how it rolls.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Here's a quote. Punch can still be seen around the country delighting audiences at festivals, fetes, shopping centers, holiday parks, schools, parties, corporate events, Christmas fairs, and naturally, the seaside. In a 2006 UK poll, the public voted Punch and Judy onto the list of icons of England. This includes people like Shakespeare and I'm sure David Bowie. I mean, the Beatles are on that list. Punch and Judy.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
They've been around for 400 years in Great Britain, right? I mean, I can see that.
Yeah, absolutely. And been instrumental to people's understanding of just expressing art, feeling something. Generally they are meant to just feel joy. And as it has been expressed several different ways over the centuries, but today it's very easy to consume. And it's just meant, here, we're just going to delight you for a couple hours. If you try to get anything substantial out of this, you're probably not going to.
No.
Just enjoy yourself for a moment. Okay. In preparation for Dickens Fair, these are celebrated quite a lot in England. Think of like a Renaissance fair, but more of a Dickensian slant. Everybody's dressed in Dickensian costumes, speaks in Dickensian vernacular. The performer known as Brian Patterson suggested that Punch and Judy shows may be more important than we realize. And this is from an article just this month, December 2025.
Yeah.
Mainly, Patterson suggests that since he believes that children are more immersed in screens than ever before, children are utterly thrilled when they actually can see live entertainment. He adds that there's just something about the magic of a live performance that can't entirely be replicated by creating astonishing images through computer-generated effects in movies, games, and TV. He concludes by saying that there's just something universal about Punch and Judy shows, not just for children, but for everyone. Quote, he's kind of an everyman, yet more mischievous as he likes to play tricks on other characters. He's neither hero nor villain, but like most of humanity, he learns to attend to things himself.
Yeah, I love it.
And Zach, for better for worse, that's my story on Punch and Judy shows.
That's great. Yeah, watching kids watch live theater is some of the best things in the world, right?
Yeah.
Or is one of the best things in the world. Their ability to suspend disbelief, and just viscerally react is, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, they're there. They're legitimately experiencing it. Nothing else matters. I remember I remember, I think I saw some kind of a mime act at some point
Mm-hmm.
where the performer was like walking into a Western bar or something like that and trying to prove to everybody that he's tough enough to be
Mm-hmm.
there and everything, and gets into not necessarily a fight with another gunslinger or something like that, but it was all just one guy.
Yeah.
And I just found myself like a few minutes into it, I'm like, get a hold of yourself, man. Just because I was turning into that child, just
You were
going like,
5.
I was 5 going, oh my gosh, what's next? What's next?
Yeah.
And I'm delighted that we can have such things with such gravity, as we still celebrate Greek and Shakespearean tragedies, but then also in theater there are these wooden puppets who smack each other around, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just as valuable.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for all of it. It's fantastic. I read this article also. Actually, well, I read the headline. I'll be honest, um, but it was talking about how marionette puppetry is dying. Like they're
Mhm.
afraid that like the art of marionettes is going to go extinct because it is so time consuming to learn, and there
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
enough people who are coming up to learn it, right? Like learning from masters or doing that work. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting that this art form that's been around for almost 1,000 years is, well,
Mhm.
they've told us that about theater too, right? And it's
Yeah,
still
yeah,
alive.
we've been dying for 2,500. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, we find ways to keep this thing going. I read something similar about well, mime artists, to be
Mm-hmm.
frank. I mean, I did an episode on funeral clowns, and we talk about mimes and everything, and how it's not the stereotypical thing that a lot of us in America think of from the 80s, where it was something to be absolutely ridiculed and it was the worst thing that anybody could ever do with their lives.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who are legitimately amazing at convincing you that they're building an entire world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I saw this was one that's been going around the internet for the last several years. It's that guy with the triangle. There's a triangle, and he has like 2 or 3 tennis balls. And it's a triangle that's
Yep.
about like 9 feet tall, and he
Mm-hmm.
has just figured out how to bounce the tennis balls in certain directions and make different beats and like all kinds of things. And
Yep.
it's vastly entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure at the end of the day, the guy went like, yeah, that was hot for a while. And I still do it occasionally, but those were the days.
Those were the days.
But yeah, exactly. I'm so glad that it's not one of those things that we talk about to go, oh, wouldn't that be nice if that were still around? No, it's still here,
Yeah.
and there are legitimate punchmen or professors continuing the art.
Punchman. I love that.
Punchmen.
Great term.
Well, yep, that's Punch and Judy. Any last thoughts, Zach?
No, I that was generally enjoyable. I really
Yeah,
liked it. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Well, happy holidays, and hopefully a Punch and Judy show is soon in your future.
Maybe I'll go put one on for my kids right now.
Bingo.
There you go.
The breadth of diversity in theater never ceases to amaze me. And for those of us in America, Punch and Judy shows did immigrate here as well, so I'm sure you can see them somewhere. Maybe track down a Renaissance fair or even a Dickens fair if you happen to find one. And I'd like to thank Zach Schneider for his contributions to this episode and helping me bring such a wonderfully warm end to the second season of this podcast. But for now, I'll sign off. This has been another episode of Euripides Eumenides, a theater history podcast. I have been your host, Aaron Odom. Another episode will be in your ears sometime soon to begin season 3, and I will see you at intermission.